Good morning. Today is Monday, July 11th, 2022. This is the Urban Hope Refuge Morning Devotions. We are continuing our reading today from the 2022 Daily Bible Reading Guide published by the American Bible Society. For the month of July, we are reading under the theme, God's Renewing Word of Faith. And before I begin our reading for today, I do want to take a moment to wish a very, very happy and blessed 7th year pastoral anniversary to our pastor, Pastor Ashley J. Johnson. 7 years with the people of God at the Urban Hope Refuge Church. I want to thank all of the guest speakers that came in over the weekend. The Connecticut Northern Diocese Bishop Jesse F. Carney Sr. on Friday evening, and on Saturday evening, First Lady Pastor Jacqueline Power of Latter Rain Church to speak a word to our First Lady and our church family. And also, I want to thank Dr. Michael Bailey, co-pastor of the First Cathedral. What a blessing and wonderful weekend. And to all of the friends of Pastor AJ who showed up, those of the white and blue family, the civic guests, and listen, Bishop McCoy, Vice Chair of the International Board of Bishops. Thank you to all of you on behalf of the Urban Hope Refuge Church family. We are reading today Joshua chapter 3, verses 1 through 17 in the New King James Version. And the sub-theme is Israel crosses the Jordan. Verse 1. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out for Achaia Grove and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they crossed over. So it was after 3 days that the officers went through the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall set out for your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way before. And Joshua said to the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. Then Joseph spoke to the priest, saying, take up the ark of the covenant and cross over before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua, this day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. You shall command the priest who bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when you come to the edge of the water of Jordan, you should stand in the Jordan. So Joshua said to the children of Israel, come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, by this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites and Hittites and the Hivites and the Perizzites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over before you in the Jordan. Now therefore, take yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one man from every tribe, and it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off. The waters that came down from upstream, and they shall stand as a heap. So it was, when the people set out from their camp to cross over the Jordan with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, the feet of the priest who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks during the whole season of harvest, that the waters came down from upstream, stood still, and rose in a heap very far at Adam, the city which is beside Zarethan. So the waters that went down into the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea, failed and were cut off. And the people crossed over opposite Jericho. Then the priest who bore the ark of the covenant stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel crossed over on dry ground until all the people had completely crossed over the Jordan. My God. Well, this concludes our reading of Joshua chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. I am just so excited and refreshed in my faith by the reading of these words of this scripture. Now, when we ended last week, we were still in Deuteronomy, and Moses had died, but he had laid his hands on Joshua, prayed for him as God directed him, and Joshua is now the leader. And let me tell you, or just remind you of the God that we serve. God was not only with Moses, but he made it known to the people by his acts with Joshua that I am going to be with Joshua just as I was with Moses. God has no respect of persons. When he calls you, he makes provisions for you to carry out his will. Well, it's so much packed in the scripture, and I want to tell it all, but I just have to try to hit the highlights of it. Well, if you will remember, not in our reading, but in your own reading, that Joshua had sent two spies out to look and see what was going on with this promised land that God had allowed Moses to look into, but not to go into, to walk into, for reasons that we read about on last week. Well, now these two spies have gone, they have checked everything out. Now they're back to Joshua, giving him a report. And they said to Joshua, and this would be in chapter 2, which we did not read today. He said to Joshua, the Lord has handed over the entire land to us. Everyone who lives in the land, this is what the two spies came back and told Joshua. Everyone that is living in the land is panicking because of this. Well, this is the news that Joshua was waiting for. So immediately after he received that news, he dispatched runners throughout the camp of the hundreds of thousands of Israelites that were now following him. He was their leader. And he sent those runners out throughout the camp, announcing that the first thing in the morning that they were going to break camp and pitch their tents on the banks of the Jordan River, that they would finally come to the point of entry of the Holy Land that had been promised to their ancestors, that their ancestors never got to see because of their disobedience to God. So now, here we are in chapter 3, verse 1, and Joshua starts out early. And they went as far as the Jordan, and they stayed there before crossing about 3 days. So now Joshua leads the Israelites over the Jordan. The Lord cuts off the water of the Jordan. The Jordan was in a dreadful state when they got there. They were expecting to just float on into the promised land, but there were challenges there. It was the period of harvest when the water always overflowed the banks, and that's what they were confronted with, because underneath that water were all kinds of branches and traps that if one tripped on it, they would fall, and those heavy currents and waves would carry them away to their death. But listen, God never tells us to do anything that he does not make provisions for us to do it. But when they reached that Jordan, the Jordan was defiantly uncrossable. And there was one sentence in verse 15 that said, and as those who bore the ark came to Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks during the whole time of season, listen, during the whole season of harvest. But listen to this. No matter what situation the Jordan was in, God makes a way. And there are Jordan situations in all of our lives. So many of us face personal Jordans every day that make us feel that there are permanent and powerful situations in our lives that we can't cross over, just like the Israelites felt that they couldn't cross over the Jordan. But we know that God always keeps his promises. And I'm going to close now, but where the scripture shows us that the Israelites felt that there was no way, listen, even in our lives today, just like God made a highway of dry land through that desert for the Israelites again, because the way that he made it the first time with Moses, all of those people, those generations had died and they had not seen the promised land, although God made a way, a highway out of no way. He's doing it again for later generations under Joshua. Listen, I have to close, but you have to know that where there is no way, God can make his own highway, and it is contingent upon our faith. Listen, pray your way through the day, walk with the King, and be a blessing.